Hello and welcome back to National Association of Pastoral Musicians, pray tell audience. Today I'm now visiting with Father Mark Francis, who is a liturgical scholar and specialist in enculturation. He did his doctorate at Sant'Anselmo, the Benedictine headquarters in Rome, with Father Ansgar Chipungo. He taught there. He belongs to the Viatorian order, and he's now president of Catholic Theological Union in Chicago. And Mark is the author of this new book from Liturgical Press, Local Worship, Global Church, Popular Religion and the Liturgy. It's a quite comprehensive little study that I highly recommend to everyone. We could certainly visit at great length about this and unpack it, but we're actually here to talk about something else, and that is graduate theological education. Mark, I believe you've been at CTU for 1 year, is that right?
Just completed my first anniversary.
And how does it look? What is your view of the state of higher education in theology?
Well, I think higher education, and especially theological education, is under a lot of stress these days. The Association of Theological Schools has noted over the past 10 years there's been a decrease in enrollment in all seminaries, both Catholic and Protestant. And so we're concerned about, obviously concerned about enrollment. We're concerned also about how theological education today can respond to the growing need for diversification and attention to culture, given the globalized world in which we're living and the real change in the student bodies of most of the major seminaries in the United States.
Talk to us about those changes. Is it demographic? Is it generational? Is it ethnic? Is it racial? Is it ideological? What are the shifts in the students?
I would say yes to all of those. That's why it's a very complex situation. Certainly, there's the cultural difference is very noted. The increasing number of Hispanic seminarians is both a blessing and a challenge to theological education today. But at CTU we go beyond simply seminarians. We also have lay folks. Many of our lay people, as in St. John's as well, are people who are studying theology and ministry for kind of a second career. And so the generational issue comes into play as well. So we have people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s studying with people in their 20s, which is both an enrichment and a challenge in terms of how we deal with issues of church and what's important. And of course, it's a microcosm of the larger church. So in a way, it's a very healthy kind of a situation as well.
What are some of the pedagogical implications for these shifts? How do we deliver education? Is more of it in the parish? Is there more field ed? Is it more online? Is it more weekends and short courses? Or what's all shifting?
Well, I think because of technology, the great difference right now is how we're offering courses online, especially to areas in the country that don't have their own centers for theology and ministry. Especially in the Southwest, there are not that many Catholic universities, and especially Catholic universities that would specialize in questions of ministry and theology. And so to have online learning is a great boon to them, especially to those dioceses that are considered kind of in the boonies, as it were, outside of urban centers.
Sure. You know, there is the stereotype out there that the younger students coming in are more conservative or more traditional, but I bet the reality is more complex than that. What does it look like from your vantage point at CTU in Chicago?
Well, I think that there are some. The question of Catholic identity is one of the key questions for younger folks that are considering ministry or those who have entered religious communities. What makes CTU a bit different, and it kind of corresponds to St. John's in a sense, is that we educate religious seminarians who are going to become priests. They've gone through a certain preparation already through their novitiates and their own formational programs in their individual communities, and so they don't come to us without that kind of formation. And that greatly facilitates their integration into the seminary, into the theological school.
Mm-hmm. Let's turn our focus to liturgy within graduate theological education. What sorts of shifts are happening there in terms of numbers and content and what people are looking for and how you're responding to the situation?
Well, I think there's a concern to do liturgy well. I think there's a concern for people, most people, to embrace the liturgy as it was reformed by the Second Vatican Council. Now, how that's done is somewhat of a question to debate among people. There are those that hew more carefully to the rubrical nature of liturgy, and not to say that that's a bad thing, but I think part of what theological education is about is also to expand people's horizons and to explain, especially in our globalized church, that there's more than one way of doing things liturgically, both in terms of liturgical music, gesture, and art. All those things are very much influenced by the cultural milieu in which they're being celebrated. And so those are things that at CTU, we're really trying to help people, because they're going to come into those kinds of challenges once they leave the school.
What do the numbers look like in the liturgy area in general and at CTU? I mean, my sense is that it's down at St. John's and Notre Dame and Graduate Theological Union. What's your sense of things, Mark?
Yeah, we've experienced the same thing. I think, though, with the new Pope, there is a tendency for people to become interested again in terms of looking at the liturgy, not as a series of rubrics or just rites to be done, but also as a way of evangelizing, as a positive way of reaching out to people from various cultures and being able to do that in a dynamic way. And so I'm looking in the near future for the numbers in liturgy to rise.
Boy, wouldn't that be wonderful? Yet another good Francis effect. You know, in the blogosphere and at Pray Tell, we have spent, maybe an inordinate amount of time and energy on the liturgy wars, an extraordinary form and ordinary form, the meaning of Vatican II, and hermeneutic of continuity, and all of this. My hunch is that is not a big part of your energies at CTU, because you are so diverse in so many other ways, especially racially and ethnically, that you move beyond and have more important things to talk about. Is that accurate?
Well, I think we're concerned about some of those things, but at CTU, we're very much involved in an ecumenical kind of a situation, as well as an interfaith reality. Just this past week, I've been to 2 iftar dinners celebrating Ramadan with the Muslims. I go to the Jewish conference quite a bit in downtown Chicago. And CTU has become kind of a place where people from diverse religious backgrounds can come together without fear to discuss issues that are important to them. Just the other day, a rabbi approached me in terms of talking about what's going on in Israel right now with the Gaza problem and the rockets, and so he's looking for ways of reaching out to the larger community outside of his own Jewish community in order to help explain his position, and then he knows that he'll get a fair and honest and sensitive hearing in the context of CTU.
Very interesting, very important work you're doing. Lots of changes, lots of challenges, some shrinkage. What do you see as the signs of hope in all of the transitions we're in the midst of?
Well, I just see that the people are. I think the most common characteristic I think today that characterizes most of our students is that they're engaging in their studies without fear. They're not afraid of being challenged. They're not afraid of thinking differently. They're not afraid of reaching out in creative ways. And that's true also of CTU. We have this crisis on the border right now in the South with 50,000 undocumented young people. CTU is partnering with a group called the Interfaith Committee on Detained Immigrants, and we have rented at a great discount the 4th floor of our residence hall in order to receive immigrants who are awaiting the adjudication of their cases by immigration. And so we're trying to partner with them to offer a safe place for these immigrant women in order to hold up some hope for them to regularize their status in the United States. And so I think that's a sign of the institution's willingness to engage the world in a constructive way.
Well, it's inspiring to hear that about your students and about the great work you're doing at CTU. So we've been visiting with Father Mark Francis, and Mark, thank you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Father Anthony.